Everybody, this is Brent, and welcome to Our Darkest Fears. I finally was able to sit down and binge watch it, Welcome to Derry. So let's talk about it. Whenever I was a kid, in the Gen X kid that I was, when I showed up to 6th grade English and threw this bad boy down on the desk, my 6th grade reading teacher thought I was absolutely insane. But she found out I was dead up serious because we ended up having a bookstore within the school. And because of me, they started ordering in Stephen King books for the middle school. You're welcome, guys. For all those kids that went to middle school with me, if you love Stephen King, you're welcome. All right, so I've read it multiple times. It's one of my top 5 favorite Stephen King books. And I felt like I had all the information I really needed. You know, King's gone back several times, between the Dark Tower, 11/22/63, thrown Derry in, some more ties to Pennywise and some of the kids and things, because that's just what Stephen King does. And then, growing up, the movie that fucked clowns up for all of us, thanks to Tim Curry. And even whenever Andy Muschietti went in to do his 2-part It movie, which I was unsure of at first, but I really, really do enjoy the, it's a little bit, there's some things that are true to the book and things like that, but that's kind of everything. You're never going to be totally 100% faithful to a book whenever you adapt it to the screen. That's just the way it goes. Even whenever Stephen King adapts his own books for the screen, it's faithful, but it's not 100% faithful, i.e. The Shining. He hates Kubrick's. Most of us hate his. I mean, all right, hate's a strong word. We hate Steven Weber. No, all right, that's still strong. We don't hate Steven Weber. It's just that compared to, we grew up with The Shining being like the legendary picture. The Shining miniseries, that even though it's, Mountain Dew. Even though it's more faithful to the book, it's just not as good of a movie. And I think because it tries to be too faithful to the book. And in the It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 tried to be more faithful to the book. And once it was over with, I felt like we were done. We were done with it. But then the Welcome to Derry was announced. And then it just seemed like it took forever to get made and produced. Part of it was like, at least the scripts were all written before the writer's strike. So whenever the writer's strike hit in 23, they were able to start filming. Unfortunately, even though they had all the scripts written, once the writer's strike hit and they were able to start filming, well, then the Actors Guild strike hit, so they had to stop filming. And then there was all the questions of whether or not Bill Skarsgård would be coming back to be Pennywise. And at first he was kind of like, no, but then it was announced that, he was going to come back and be Pennywise. So before I sat down, and this was really hard, I tried to avoid any videos on YouTube, any discussions, anything about the series. I didn't even read episode plot synopsises on IMDb. I went into Welcome to Derry clean slate. Because I wasn't sure we needed an It origin story. I wasn't sure I really wanted or needed an expansion of Pennywise's story. And which brings us to the 8 episodes of It, Welcome to Derry. The first thing that surprised me was how much Pennywise is actually used. He's a major player. I mean, even early on in the series, and plays a significant role all the way through, which really surprised me, because a lot of times whenever, they do properties like this, it's like, we're going to say it's Welcome to Derry, but we're only going to show Pennywise in, the season finale, or we might show him like a brief cameo in this episode and then not show him again until the season finale. So I was really surprised by the usage. I was really surprised by the violence and the gore, but I think that's because since it was an HBO series, it really held and kept the same look and feel of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. This is the one thing I hate about streaming. And I think it really brings a lot of streaming series down. Welcome to Derry is 8 episodes. It probably could have been done in 5. Especially there were times in the finale where I was about ready to grab the remote and start doing 10-minute skips, or 10-second skips, because there were points it's just like it drug, and it's like we definitely could have. But I feel like the whole streaming feel is, all right, we got to get 8 episodes, regardless of how much we have to fuck up the story and drag that bitch out. We have to get 8 episodes. It was the same issue with Stranger Things and some other series I've watched. They drag out just for the sake of dragging them out into that certain amount of episodes that they feel like they need to hit. And Welcome to Derry was a victim of that. However, I wasn't sure how the Pennywise origin would fly. It was really cool seeing spoilers. All right, so if you haven't watched it yet, turn this off. If you've watched it yet, we're going to have a serious discussion. I'll talk about it, and then we can talk about it down in the comments. King hit upon it whenever Pennywise first arrives. But it was really interesting seeing the origin of where he got his Pennywise look. That was really interesting to see. And the way it ties into some of the characters and builds toward the movies. Because that was another thing is, little Easter eggs here and there to build to the movies. Especially when you get to the finale where they're, because you already had Will Hanlon as one of the main characters who you already know is going to be Mike Hanlon's father. And you start getting drops of other names. Like Clint Bowers is the town chief of police. And you see the things that set in motion to cause his downfall that leaves him as, the abusive alcoholic father of Henry Bowers in the novel and, in the miniseries and the movies. So it does do a good job of expanding and world building. There was some stuff, when you start getting to the pieces of the ship and the 13 pillars and blah. I was going through the finale. Like I'm sitting there at certain scenes. I'm like, all right, we're going to go the spoilers again. So hopefully if you've watched it, you're still around. If you haven't watched it, turn it off, go watch it, come back. Whenever they're taking the dagger toward the tree or whenever they're in the woods after they wreck the milk truck, and it's just like, oh, I kept waiting for Lily to go, oh, my precious, because it was literally the One Ring. It was treated as the One Ring. It affected the kids like the One Ring. And they're on this quest to go take the One Ring or the one dagger to the one place to stop the big baddie, Pennywise or Sauron or, and then whenever they get to the end, it's like, here we are, we're at the end of this. And, the dagger's fighting us from destroying it, kind of like the ring doesn't want to be thrown into Mount Doom. And, and they have to go to this deadwood tree. And I'm sitting there going, my wife's cracking up because as we're sitting there watching, they're going toward this dead tree. It looks just like the tree in Sleepy Hollow. And I'm sitting there, it's like, and the horseman rides. It's like, I was waiting to see a sword sticking out of it and, a headless Christopher Walken to come popping up out of the tree. It felt so much like it, the finale things felt so much like it was borrowing so heavy from so many things that it almost became a parody. It was an okay episode. It did a good job of finishing tying up ends. It did a good job of, setting some characters up that you didn't know were tied to characters later on. The almost after credit scene was really well done and did a really good job of tying directly to the kids from chapter 1 and chapter 2 from the movie versions. But overall, the pacing is it's slow occasionally, but it suffers, and that's some of that pacing issue. It suffers from the trying to drag it out. Because it started out extremely strong in the first couple episodes, and then it kind of dies off for a couple. And I felt the entire storyline with Dick Halloran was just gratuitous, just as a way to tie this series to The Shining and to Doctor Sleep, because it really didn't need it. They're we're using, they're using Dick Halloran and his shine to track down and find one of the pillars, or any of the pillars. But, and then in the long run, they really didn't need him because the dagger was in possession of another group of characters that were kind of like the protectors of the pillars and of the dagger and knew all about Pennywise and how he operated and the 27-year sleep cycle and, well, how many kids died this year before he went to sleep. It's like this group knew all about it. They knew where these things were at. They knew they had the dagger and all this. And the military had the military that was in charge of trying to find the pillars and were using Dick Halloran to try to, echolocate him with the shine. That was just, it wasn't needed because you had this whole other mechanism already built in from where they built a whole Native American storyline and mystic storyline around Pennywise and his imprisonment and, why he seems to only be able to stay around Derry, why he can't venture outside. So it just seemed like it was Dick Halloran was in there for the sake of, look at what we did. We tied it to The Shining. I did like the actor. I liked the character, but it was just unneeded. Some of the characters, the kids were all really good. They focused on the kids a lot, which is what they do. That's what that's what it is about at its core. But, some of the adult, and because of the stuff not really being needed with Dick Halloran, so the stuff with Will Hanlon's dad is really just kind of extra as well. The other thing is, for the time period that this is taking place in, they really, really sugarcoated the racism. They alluded to it, but they could have done more to raise awareness of this at the time, and how some of this racism feelings from then have kind of spilled out over into now, and, held a mirror up to it. It's like, look, this is what happened then. This is what's happening now. Let's look at this. But instead, they really kind of gloss over it a lot. They bring it up, but they never go full tilt boogie with it. It's kind of like, we're going to tiptoe around the racism of this time period, but we're not really going to get into the racism of this time period. If you feel different about that, like I said, I feel like they sugarcoated they sugarcoated it whenever they should have full-throated punched the racists in the face. And it seemed like nobody really got their due that was perpetuating, some of the most racist things that they did show. But so to wrap it all up, 8 episodes, probably could have been 5. I respect what Andy Muschietti tried to do. And, it's how do we want to say this? Gratuitous storytelling. It's a story that we liked, but we didn't know we needed. But now that I know it, I'm okay with knowing it. Would I watch it again? Like maybe. Like if I had a broken leg or something I couldn't get at and I didn't want to get off my couch for a week, I'd watch it, then watch the 2 movies, back to back to back. I'm hoping we do get season 2 because they did leave like one line that's said by a character at the end that gives them a way to, they said that Pennywise had said that I see all times as one. I see past, present, and future as one. And they kind of make the comment about, so he talked about wanting to go to the past because he knows that these people, everything that lines up, he knows how he dies, when he dies, who's responsible for it. And so they did leave an out to go. I haven't heard officially if there's a second season coming. I would assume so. While it didn't really chart much on the Nielsen's chart, I still think it was popular enough that they would do a second season just to fully wrap it up. Because now that they've kind of said, yeah, we can go back to the other, the adults and one in chapter 1 and chapter 2 are here. This is them as kids. We've gone back to 27 years from that. And then, go back the next 27 years. The only problem is once you hit back past the next 27 years, you lose Pennywise. And so I'm wondering if that's how they're just going to go back maybe one more season, go back one more sleep cycle, do that, and then hopefully call it a day. But, it's worth a watch. Out of 5 tombstones, I'd give it 4. Like I said, it really loses it on that. The drug out, gratuitous storylines just to tie to other King things. But like I said, I recommend it. I'd watch it again if I didn't have anything better to do. Or after a certain amount, like before, like if they did do a second season, I would watch it. Welcome to Derry season 2, because even at the end, during the closing credits, when it showed the Welcome to Derry, it said chapter 1. So I assume with the movies, they would do another season in chapter 2. So 4 out of 5. Recommend it. It's definitely worth one watch. If you don't watch it past that, I don't blame you. But drop your comments below. Let's talk about it. And be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. And if you like travel stuff, my other channel, Brent's Crossroads, head over there. And I will see you on the dark side. Bye.